As campaign season ramps up in the presidential race, Trump is doing many, many more interviews, as is Biden. I'll show you a clip at the end of this segment of Biden roasting Trump in a recent interview. But here, more and more interviews means more and more unhinged moments from the convicted felon, former president Donald Trump. And strangely enough, this latest interview is with Dr. Phil at Mar-a-Lago. If you haven't kept up with the political arc of Dr. Phil, he's now a right-winger. And here you'll notice, this is not important, but before we get into some of these clips, Dr. Phil was giving me weird vibes. I'll just put it there. The way he's staring at Trump while Trump's talking, and he seems so in awe of what Trump's saying as Trump's just sort of falling apart. It's very uncomfortable. But let's get into this first moment. In every interview now, the question comes up of the media, the liberals. They want to say that you want revenge, that you want retribution. That's not what you want, right? And Trump is increasingly, as we talked about with yesterday's Hannity interview, being more and more explicit in saying, of course I want revenge. My next term, and this is me speaking, not him, is going to be about harming my enemies, not helping Americans at large. Here's this first moment.
I think you have so much to do, you don't have time to get even. You only have time to get right.
Well, revenge does take time, I will say that.
It does.
And sometimes revenge can be justified, Phil. I have to be honest. Sometimes it can.
But is the country better or worse for them going after you?
I think the country is really worse for what they've done. And I think you see that when you look at the poll numbers. When you see that almost $400 million has poured in since this horrible decision was made. That was a few days ago.
I've been expecting you. Yesterday, I asked you all to subscribe, and I just want to thank you. 10,000 people in one day, in 24 hours, subscribed to the channel. I worked for months back when I started the channel to get to 10,000 subscribers. One day. You are amazing. If you haven't yet, please click that subscribe button.
Numbers that nobody's ever heard of in politics before. It's a great honor. The people of our country get it. You know, they're very smart.
Right, so then moving on to something that is numbers I have a hard time believing, but let's just go with it. The point he's trying to make is that his base, which I don't doubt, is being very much riled up by the fact that he was convicted on 34 felony counts, but not sticking too long on the revenge question, except for saying, yeah, revenge takes time, and sometimes that's justified. And the time that I'll have, limited time, as president, he might want to make it less limited than the Constitution demands, but presumably limited time, he will be allocating toward energy, resources, effort going towards harming his enemies, punishing them for doing to him conspiratorially this witch hunt, right? In reality, he got himself in legal trouble. He's being held legally accountable. But in the name of these conspiracy theories about it all being a witch hunt, he's going to actually weaponize power, do the thing that he's accusing the other side of doing wrongly, but he'd actually do it. Before getting back to the Dr. Phil interview, here's a reminder of another recent moment where he's saying something similar.
In your first term, you didn't arrest or jail any of your political opponents, but after your conviction last week, has your approach to that changed?
Well, I purposely didn't because I thought it would be a horrible thing to do. Hillary Clinton, all these people, what they did is terrible. But can you imagine? You arrest, jail the President of the United States' former wife. You take the former President of the United States, you arrest the wife, you put the wife in jail. I thought it would be a terrible thing. The world is different now. They're doing things that were never done. They're doing what they do in third world countries. With my thing, I had no crime. There was no crime. There was no anything. The prosecutor never wanted to bring the case until I decided to run. The only reason they brought the case is because I ran for election.
False.
It could have been brought 7 years ago. There would have been nothing to say, but nobody wanted to bring it because there is no
Also false.
Case. There was no crime. So when you ask me the question, would we do it? I'll talk to you in about 3 years from now.
So yes, but also I hate the framing of these questions. I don't know if this is a right wing. By the way she asked that question, gives me the vibe of a right wing interviewer. You decided so courageously, with so much humility and honor, to not, even though everyone wanted you to not put your political opponents in jail while you were president. That's not how the presidency is supposed to work. And Trump did want that to happen. I'll get to that in a second. But now they've distorted how the president involves himself in prosecutions, which is supposed to be, they're not going, yeah, prosecute that person, prosecute that person. That's not the office of the presidency. At least it's not supposed to be. But Trump wants to put a loyalist in the position of attorney general to do exactly that. He's not going to do what Biden's done, which is keeping that wall of separation, and he's going to very much involve himself. Now, before getting to what I mentioned about the fact check of him not trying to or not wanting to lock up Hillary, here is another moment from this interview where he again says something so overtly untrue.
When I mentioned the name Hillary in the previous to the last election, they said, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. But I would be there, and I'm trying to almost quiet them down. They were going crazy.
In the last interview, he said, I never said lock her up. And then he's expanding on that, saying, I would try to quiet the crowd down. I never said such a thing. Well, it's not accurate.
I will say this, Hillary Clinton has to go to jail, okay?
She has to go to jail.
For what she's done, they should lock her up. She's disgraceful.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Crooked Hillary, wait. Crooked, you should lock her up, I'll tell you.
And you get the point. So we already fact-checked that claim, but rhetorically, he was saying Hillary Clinton should be locked up. And also Ryan Goodman points out, Truth 1, Attorney General Sessions told federal investigators Trump tried to get him to prosecute Clinton. And Truth 2, Justice Department investigated the Clinton Foundation until Trump's final days. So even his actions, now granted, as we saw so many times in the first Trump term, Trump would want things, but want to get them done because of his own incompetence and because he wasn't surrounded by only loyalists at that point in time. Some people would say no to him. He's learned from those mistakes, and he's going to surround himself with people who will do what he'd like when he requests it. And so AG Sessions won't be saying no to him. And that's the scary scenario that awaits. But him trying to push this idea that for the sake of the country, he didn't do something that he would have otherwise done as it pertains to Hillary Clinton is just nonsense. And also, as just a side note, it's really strange how he says that. It's because of, I guess, his obsession with presidents having immunity, so those around them having immunity. Instead of just saying it would have been a horrible thing to lock up my political opponent. You'll notice in that clip with the reporter, he said it would be a horrible thing to lock up the president of the United States' wife. The former president is how he phrased it. Why is Hillary Clinton, in your mind, being held as just the wife of a former president? She was also your leading political opponent and nearly won an election against you and was a former Secretary of State and a former senator, etc. Just a strange framing there from Trump. But here's more from this interview.
You'd be the first one to do it. I know you. You'd say, what? Let's get rid of these. You know the money they save and the danger they save?
And look at this map that...
Do you notice how abruptly they're cutting this? It's like the Fox News interview.
You'd be the first one to do it. I know you. You'd say, what? Let's get rid of these. You know the money they save and the danger they save?
And look at this map.
Just very strange. Trying their best, like Fox News, to help Trump out, smooth out the incoherent parts, and fragment together piece together, I should say, different fragments to make Trump's thoughts seem more coherent. Here, to his credit, he coherently explains his thought on this, which is that Adam Schiff, he's not hot enough for Trump.
Infuriates me.
I called him up. I knew it wasn't true, but I said, hey, this guy, these are not stupid people. I call him Watermelon Head. He's got the thinnest neck I've ever seen, how it holds up that head. He's got a neck that's about a size 6. Very unattractive guy, both inside and outside. And people say, oh, that's such a terrible thing to say. That's okay. Very unattractive guy. Here's the thing. These are bad people.
This is what I mean. Dr. Phil, what is that look? Ooh. But Trump's very irritated. And his chief criticism of Adam Schiff is that he's not physically appealing to me. I don't find myself attracted to him. Very weird. Very, very weird. Then you have this.
So there's a movement in this country. It's called MAGA. And Biden's always fighting it. We will stop MAGA. MAGA is Make America Great Again. And we were doing, I had an administration that was a tremendous success. Even enemies, we had the greatest economy in history. We had the best job numbers in history. That's why I'm doing so well with the black and Hispanic vote. They had the best job numbers they've ever had.
All right, very strange clip here. Not playing correctly, but he says this a lot about Biden, that Biden doesn't understand the meaning of MAGA, and he says it's a threat to democracy, but it just means make America great. No, we know what it's supposed to mean. That's what you say that it means. When we refer to MAGA as a movement and what it means, we're talking about what you've turned the movement into and what you all stand for. And you can say it's about making the country great again. You can say it's about moving the country forward, which I don't think even he would describe his agenda as that. It's more so moving things backward. But we see what it is. We see what you stand for. We see how you threaten democracy. And that's what Biden's calling out whenever he refers to extreme MAGA Republicans. Then you have this.
I would have loved to have testified. I wanted to. I'm telling you, they had to hold me back.
He keeps acting like something prevented him from testifying, that they had to hold him back, as he said there, and that he was trying to testify. But of course, your lawyers can't prevent you. They can advise you not to testify, but they can't prevent you from testifying. And he could have, if he really knew that he would go on the stand and tell the truth and destroy the case being made by prosecutors, he had every right to do so. The reason that he didn't is because he knows that he would go up there and perjure himself, and that would cause even more legal troubles. And that's why he didn't testify. Here's more.
My question is why? I understand how. I know you got a thick skin. You're not one of those people that's afflicted with the need to be loved by strangers. I get that.
I think that's true.
Well, why insult us like this? Phil, Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil McGraw, sir. You're not one of those people that's afflicted with the need to be loved by strangers, describing Trump. That's the definition of why he got into politics. That's his life, sir, Dr. Phil McGraw. Goodness, here's Trump saying this.
And I don't think I've ever said this on air before. Maybe I have. But losing the election wouldn't have been that, somebody wins, somebody loses. You go on with your life. But when you lose an election that you won by millions of votes, if I didn't think I won the election, I would have never done it a second time, because I would have lost. In other words, I would have lost.
You did lose. So I wish that you would accept that and then indeed not run this time around. Now, Biden also did an interview recently, and I do just want to play this moment.
You bring up your opponent, Donald Trump. He has said of your executive action, he's pretending to finally do something about the border, but it's all about show. He says we have a debate coming up. Biden's executive order is weak and pathetic.
Is he describing himself? Weak and pathetic? Come on. Look, everybody knows what's happened. We had a deal. It was much broader than this, much better, much more accepted.
I don't know what's happening with all these clips, having a tough time playing, but you get the point. Trump described Biden's executive order as weak and pathetic. Biden says, is he describing himself? And a nice quip there, and then follows it up with an explanation, as we've heard many times from Biden, about Trump actually attempting to shoot down policies that would improve the situation at the southern border and even a bipartisan border deal. And he's opposing Biden's executive actions. Everything's bad that Biden does, no matter what it is, no matter how aligned it is with what some of these Republicans have said they want to see done at the border. Let me know what you thought of that whacked interview with Dr. Phil and Trump in the comments. And if you want to get the daily bonus show, you can do so by clicking the join button below.